Diane, I'm going to welcome you to the news today. Your specialist professional area is informatics and research. What is your take on the response here? I think we've got the public really starting to do the job, which is argue back instead of just shout.
Thanks, Brian. Yes, glad to be here. Absolutely. I agree with you. It's really interesting, I think, how they are confusing and mixing the messages around to make people believe that perhaps correct information is misinformation and vice versa. And that's what I'm going to cover here today, to go a little bit further and to try to figure out what it is that they're actually doing and what we need to do to make people more aware of this. So I'd like to start here with a video from Sky News that Debbie Evans sent to me over the weekend, and we'll go from there.
Lines in British life, things we don't agree on, political, cultural, ideological. But here, perhaps, is the deepest, when one part of the population rejects the other's version of reality.
I do not consent!
We've come here to West Cumbria, just outside the Lake District actually, and we're going to the Weekend Truth Festival, WTF for short. I think most people would describe it as a conspiracy theory festival.
So yes, WTF indeed. We have an article here as well that went along with the video that the journalist wrote, saying that Katie Hopkins was there. She was one of the headline speakers and said, "I smell a virgin," when she looked directly at the Sky News reporter who was there, as he sort of said, infiltrating it. And he interviewed some of these so-called conspiracy theorists and trolls and used the kind of language that Mariana Spring likes to use when she's describing people that don't see things in the mainstream view and the official view of things. And he quoted someone here saying, Teresa said, "It's not a fiction book, is it?" As if to ridicule Teresa for thinking that it was in fact real. Well, it is real, and there's a sequel to The Great Reset. So these are not fictional items, and I think that's what they're trying to do, just at first glance. And it talks about strong emotion. And if we look at the next slide here, if they were talking about the strong emotion of these conspiracy theorists and how angry they were, well, does anyone remember back in 2020 when those of us who didn't buy into the COVID narrative were called Covidiots? This is an article from the Telegraph from early on in 2020. They certainly had strong emotion against the rest of us who had a different way of seeing things, didn't they? I know that UK Column has been looking at the so-called independent fact-checking organization Full Fact for some time. If you haven't read this article from Brian from back in 2012, I highly recommend it. It goes a little bit deeper into some controversy that the UK column was involved in and stood up against back in 2012. But I decided to go a little bit further into Full Fact itself and Faux Facts, or if you were really upset about it, you could maybe think of your own bad language to substitute with the word fact, but I won't do that because this is a professional organization. So here is a crowdfunder that we'll start with from Full Fact, where they were trying to crowdfund the 2024 election. And just to show you the video there that they were promoting to get people to donate to this £85,000 that we want. Go ahead, please.
Facts.
The facts.
The facts. These are the facts.
In the run-up to the general election, we're being bombarded with facts everywhere we look.
But how do we know what to trust? That's where Full Fact comes in. Full Fact is the UK's leading independent fact-checking charity.
Every day, the team at Full Fact tirelessly sifts through claims, statements, and news to ensure that everyone receives accurate and reliable information. And we must ensure that bad information doesn't gain traction and doesn't corrupt the results of the election. We've honed our skills over 4 general elections and 3 referendums, and now we're bringing all our experience to this election. But we're asking for your help.
We need to raise £85,000 to fact-check the general election at a scale never seen before. Your donation will help fund our biggest ever team of fact-checkers. That means more fact-checks on more politicians reaching more people. You'll be playing your part in amplifying good information to ensure that voters in every constituency can make informed choices on the issues that matter to them. Donate to Full Fact now and keep the facts at the heart of the general election. Thank you.
So, given that fabulous video with the amazing background music, I would like to go into Full Fact a little bit more as an organization, and in particular, who is at the top, who is in charge of Full Fact. and just to ask these questions of, do we really believe that this is, in fact, an independent fact-checking organization? My view is no, but let's see what you think. So I went into looking at some of the financials of Full Fact and some of the major supporters and some of these financial figures. You can freeze the screen. I know there's quite a bit there, but there's some information about who has donated to Full Fact in the past few years in terms of major grants, in terms of the directors who are on the trustee board and so on, and who the major supporters have been. You know what it says here, that basically this website Giving is Great, where I found these figures, say, well, it's basically it's in a fabulous position. They're doing so well. They're, really going forward. But who are the trustees that are listed there? So we see the full list of the Full Fact trustees. If we look at some of the biographies of some of the men individuals who are listed, we see here Michael Samuel. He is the co-founder and the chair of Full Fact. I'm going to go into him in a little bit more detail, so I'll come back to him, but let's look at these other two. Tim Gordon is on the World Economic Forum's Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and he is in charge of best practice AI, and he is working on the AI initiative for Full Fact, which is essentially AI trying to fact-check facts. Finally, we have here James Harding. He is co-founder and editor of Tortoise, so maybe there's something there for Ben Rubin to follow up on as well. And so we can start to see here, okay, already we're seeing these are not independent people who are on the trustee board, and they're quite significant positions of power when it comes to the global structure of things. So going on to look at Michael Samuel, he has a total of 65 appointments listed on the Companies House website. And I know that Companies House is not always entirely reliable, but it's the best that we have. I think he has 15 current appointments if you filter it by that. And I'm really interested in what some of these companies do. He's listed as a philanthropist around the internet, and we kind of know what that sort of implies. He is in charge of a company called Murex. He's in charge of other things. We also have as well his wife, Julia, and they have this address called in Somerset, which I looked it up as a listed country house, very large mansion. That's their correspondence address that's listed in most places. We can see here Sir Marcus Samuel was his great-great-grandfather. He has the peerage title of Viscount Bierstead. I hope I'm saying that correctly. He was Michael's great-great-grandfather, and what is significant about him, and be ready for this, is that he is the founder of Shell Oil Energy Corporation. And we go straight through the peerage, straight through his ancestry, and we can track this directly back to him, and the peerage has maintained itself up to that point. It's really interesting to see as well, when you look at this website that is called the Marque, which lists his information about this, I guess it's like a reputation website. So you have to apply to be managed by the Marque, and you can then see their digital profile information. And so it's very carefully crafted, and it lists all these organizations that he's a member of. He's a chairman of this. He donates to that. It just kind of goes on and on and on. So I think it's interesting if you compare it to something like Companies House, you compare it to LinkedIn, that whoever these people are paying a lot of money to have their digital identity shaped into a certain way. So here's a couple of articles.
Diane.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Yes.
Diane, if I might just come back in here. I think it's important to say that we're looking at people and their connections. The main thing we're focusing on is that they're extremely powerful. And if you're involved with 65 companies, or at some stage you've been involved with 65 companies, it's interesting to see the amount of effort that must take to keep going. And also, what are their connections and interests? So if we're on the subject of independent fact-checking, is it independent if people have got interests connected in? And the problem is we don't know. So I just want to stress and echo back to the audience that we're not saying these people are doing anything wrong. What we're saying is that if you're claiming utter transparency in your full fact checking, we need to be very clear who is involved and why they're involved and what vested interests individuals have.
Absolutely. These were a couple of articles that were linked from his carefully crafted profile. One is about the Princess of Wales, who visited, this was back in 2023 when she was still in public view, where she visited the Anne Freud Center, which is something that he is the chairman of, and that's worth quite a bit of money. That's actually him standing behind the Princess of Wales, and articles about mental health awareness, anxiety, climate anxiety in particular, that young people, or maybe people in general, are anxious about the climate. So again, another piece of agenda setting there, if you ask me. This is a website that is available through libraries. It's a subscription database that you have to pay for your libraries have to pay for. So this gives a lot of information on filings and so on by corporations. So just to give you a couple of ideas of the financials of these organizations, Murex Energy is one of many that Michael Samuel comes up on, and that has 2023 shareholders funds of, I can't see, that's a few £1 million. And if we go on to the next one, we also see the Anna Freud Center, and we see Faux Facts. So the balance sheet of Anna Freud Center, the bottom line there is over £30 million, and Faux Facts has a little over £1 million. So we see, once again, why are we doing this crowdfunding? Why are we trying to give the illusion that they need this £85,000 for crowdfunding this information? This is another organization that Michael Samuel chairs. It's called Civic, and again, we see this narrative over and over again that Debbie Evans has covered as well about change. We have to change. We have to change quickly. We have to do these causes that are systemic issues, and we have to go in and fix them. So I'm just going to ask this question because I hope to come back to this later. What is next for Faux Facts? And the next answer that I can find is AI. We are going to be using AI to do the fact checking, and it will be led by this man who is appointed by the WEF as being in charge of AI for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And Mariana Spring luckily wrote an article over the weekend about AI fake information. So I will be interested in looking at further what she has to say about this topic and how this will maybe tie in with the AI fact checking. And can AI fact check Mariana? That's a bigger question that I have, Brian.
Okay, Diane, thank you very much. That lots of questions to be asked around full fact, or faux fact, as we prefer to call them. But we'll be digging in and seeing what else comes to the surface. I did note the business about saying children are becoming increasingly anxious. You mentioned there in that presentation. And of course, we've heard so much of that as a result of the lockdown policy during the time of COVID. But we'll come back onto that perhaps a little later.